The trials took place over 300 years ago and are still being talked about today. Salem, Massachusetts, 1692. More than 200 people were accused of practicing witchcraft. The events and the aftermath of those events bring us here today. We are here in Salem, Massachusetts at the Salem Witch Memorial and the adjoining Old Burying Point Cemetery, also known as the Charter Street Cemetery. Walking through the memorial with the names etched into the stone of those convicted and the manner in which they were executed highlights that this is not just a spooky Halloween tale, but real events with real people. There is a ton of history and the backstory associated with what happened, far too numerous to cover here, but we will start looking a little deeper into this area and the history associated with the Salem witch trials. Although accusations of witchcraft had been pointed towards people throughout the time period that we're covering, it made its way to Salem Village in February 1692. Two girls, Betty Paris and Abigail Williams, began to have what is described as fits and convulsions, quoted as beyond the power of epileptic fits or natural disease to effect by John Hell, a minister of the day. The girls would throw things, scream, and their bodies were contorted. A doctor could find no medical issues causing this, and soon, other women within the community would start exhibiting similar symptoms. This led to accusations of witchcraft. This also led to the arrest of Sarah Good, Sarah Osborne, and Tabuta, who was accused of casting spells on the girls. There are some historians that would say that this initial accusation of witchcraft stemmed from an intense family feud between the Putnam and Porter families, which would deeply divide Salem. So the accusation of Sarah Osborne seems to be a result of this feud. The initial witch hunt made way for other accusations, and even those with high standing in the community began to receive accusations as well. This led to paranoia within the community, and if the good church-going members of society could be considered witches, then anybody could be. The cases and accusations were made before local magistrates and eventually made their way into the courts. Indictments began to get handed out to the accused. By the time the Salem witch trials were over, more than 200 people had been accused. If anyone stated that they had endured a loss, illness, or death that was caused by witchcraft, a complaint was filed with a local magistrate. If the magistrates deemed that the complaint was credible, the suspect was arrested. The trials were first conducted by a court of oyer and terminer, which translates to hear and determine, and was established to make inquiries into all treasons, whether it be felonies or misdemeanors. Next, the trials were conducted by a superior court. Both were held here in Salem. The witch hunt, which was the deadliest of its kind in colonial North America, is one of the most well-known cases of mass hysteria. There have been differing opinions on the number of deaths stemming from the witch trials, and maybe some of you will have different opinions as well. It is safe to say that there were at least 20 people executed, while a few more died while in prison. When you start looking at individual stories, you can see how the process was mortally flawed. Just look at the case of John Proctor, age 61. He was a wealthy farmer in Salem and was an outspoken critic of the witch trials. His entire family would be arrested. He knew that Salem was gripped in mass hysteria and wrote a letter to Boston clergy pleading with them to intervene. As we look back on the Salem witch trials, and as you really look at the cases and people involved, it's easy to see how paranoia and mass hysteria took over the city, much more than actual witchcraft. Some of those targeted were critics of the trials, and it is said that the accused were also victims of mob mentality and scapegoating. The Putnams, one of the feuding families mentioned earlier, took advantage of the situation and accused other colonialists that were considered rivals of witchcraft, according to historians. It appears that this type of mentality took hold of the city, and if there was somebody that a person didn't like, just accuse them of witchcraft. The last trial was held in 1693, and in the years following, many family members tried to clear the names of the accused. They would fight to establish their innocence and honor their memories. It took 300 years, but eventually happened when the state of Massachusetts passed legislation exonerating all the victims and proclaiming them innocent. This story is one that we have heard through the years, but I didn't realize the injustices that occurred. It was absolutely appalling. So many people put through torment over what amounted to mass hysteria. The only consolation is that they were finally exonerated. We really enjoyed our trip to Salem. There is a ton of history here, and I would recommend anyone that enjoys history to take a trip to Salem. Links to my Patreon and website will be in the description, and another video of mine will be on the screen soon. It is my hopes that you watch it. Once again, from Salem Witch Memorial and the Burying Point in Salem, Massachusetts, I will see you again soon.